Let's get started. Games of Thrones. George R. R. Martin. Book 1 of Song of Ice and Fire. There is a map for every kingdom. There is a north, there is a south, there is a land beyond the wall, there is a lands of summers of a sea. Yeah. Let's get started. Prologue. We should start back. Kid urged as the woods began to grow dark around them. The wildlings are dead. "Do the dead frighten you, sir?" Wayman Royce asked, with just a hint of a smile. Dad did not rise to the bait. He was an old man, past 50, and he had seen the lordlings come and go. "Dead is dead," he said. "We have no business with the dead." "Are they dead?" Royce asked softly. "What proof we have?" "We saw them," Garrett said. "If he says they are dead, that's the proof enough for me." Will had known they would drag him into the chorus soon or later. He wished it had been later rather than sooner. "My mother told me that dead men sings no songs," he put in. "My Navate nurse said the same thing, Will," the Royce replied. "Never believe anything you hear at a woman's death. There are things to be learned even from the dead." His voice echoed, too loud in a twilled forest. "We have a long ride before us," Gerd pointed out. "8 days, maybe 9, and night is falling." Sir Weimar Royce glanced at the sky with a disinterest. "It does that every day about this time. Are you unmanned by the dark, Gerd?" Will could see the tightness around the carrot's mouth and barely suppress anger in his eyes under the thick back hood of his cloak. Carrot had spent 40 years in a night watch, man and a boy, and he was not accustomed to being made light of. Yet it was more than that. Under the wounded pride, Will could sense something else in the older man. You could taste it, a nervous tension that came perilously close to fear. Will shared his unease. He had been 4 years on a wall, the first time he had been sent beyond. All the old stories came rushing back. His bowels had turned to water. He had laughed about it afterward. He was veteran of hundreds rangings by now, and endless dark wilderness that Southern called the Haunted Forest had no more terrors for him. Until tonight. Something was different tonight. There was an edge to this darkness that made his hackles rise. 9 days they had been riding north and northwest, and then north again, farther and farther, for the wall, hard on a track of a band of windling raiders. Each day had been worse than the day had become before it. Today was the worst of all. A cold wind was blowing out of the north, and it made trees rustle like living things. All day Will had left as though something were watching him, something cold, impeccable, that loved him not. Gerd had felt it too. Will wanted nothing so much as to ride hell-bent for a safety of the wall. but that was not feeling to share with your commander, especially not the commander like this one. Sir Weimar Royce was the youngest son of an ancient house with too many heirs. He was a handsome youth of 18, grey-eyed and graceful and as slender as a knife, mounted on a huge black destrier. A knight towered above Will and carried on their smaller carons. He wore black leather boots, black woolen pants, the black moleskin gloves, and a fine supple coat of gleaming black ring mail over the layers of black wool and boiled leather. Sir Weimar had been a sworn brother of a night's watch for less than half a year, but no one could say he had not prepared for this vocation, at least insofar as his wardrobe was concerned. His cloak was his crowning glory, stable, thick, black, and soft as silk. But he killed them all himself, he did. Carried told the barracks over wine, twisted their little heads off, our mighty warrior. They had all shared the laugh. It is hard to take the orders from you, man. You laughed at his your chips, your cups will reflected as he sat shivering atop his caron. Carried must have felt the same. Mormont said we should track them, and we did, Carrot said. They are dead. They shan't trouble us no more. They're hard riding before us. I don't like this weather. If it snows, we could be fortnight getting back, and the snow's the best we can hope for. Even seen the ice storm, my lord. The lordling seems not to fear him. He studied the deepening twilight in that half bored, half distracted way he had. We had ridden with the night long enough to understand that it is best not to interrupt him when he looked like that. Tell me again what you saw, Will. All the details. Leave nothing out. Will had been a hunter before he joined the Night's Watch. Well, a poacher in a truth, the Mallister freeriders had caught him red-handed in the Mallister's own wood, skinning one of the Mallister's own bucks, and it had been a choice of putting on a black or losing a hand. No one could move through the woods as silent as Will, and it not taken the Black brothers long to discover his talent. Okay, then Will said, the camp is 2 miles farther on, over the ridge, hard beside a stream, Will said. I got close as I dared. There is 8 of them, men and women, both. No children I could see. They put a lean to against a rock. The snow's pretty well covered it now, but I would still make it out. No fire burning, but the fire pit was still plain as a day. No one moving. I watched long time. No living man ever lay so still. Did you see any blood? Will said no. Did you see any weapons? Some swords, few bows. One man had an axe, heavy looking, double bladed, a cruel piece of iron. It was on a grounded beside, right by his hand. Did you make a note of the position of the bodies? Will shrugged. A couple sittings against the rock, and most of them on the ground, fallen alive. Or sleeping, the Royce suggested. Fallen, the Will insisted. There are a woman up, and I would have hid in branches of far eyes. He smiled thinly. I took care she never saw me. When I got closer, I saw that she wasn't moving either. Despite himself, he shivered. You have a chill? The Royce asked. Some, Wing, my lord. The young knight turned back to his grizzled man-at-arms. The frost-fallen leaves, whispers past them, the Royce Steered moved restlessly. "What do you think might have killed this man, Garrett?" the Wayman asked casually. He adjusted the drape of his long stable cloak. "It was cold," the Garrett said with her eye uncertainly. "I saw the men freezes last winter and one before when I was half a boy. Everyone talks about snows 40 foot deep and how ice wind becomes howling out of the north, and but the real enemy is the cold. It stills up you quieter than will, and at first you shiver and your teeth chatter and you stamp your feet, dreamed of mulled wine and nice hot fires. It burns, it does. Nothing burns like cold, but only for a while. Then it gets inside you and starts fill you up. After a while, you don't have a strength to fight it. It's easier just to sit down and go to sleep. They say you don't feel any pain towards the end. First, you go weak and drowsy, and everything starts to fade. And then it's like sinking into a sea of warm milk, peaceful alike. Such eloquence, Gerd, said Wayman observed. "I never suspected you had it in you." "I had the cold in me too, lordlings." Gerd pulled back his hood, giving Sir Weimar a good long at the stumps where his ears had been. Two years, 2 years, 3 toes, and the little finger of my left hand I got off light. We found my brother frozen at his watch with a smile on his face. Sir Weimar shrugged. "You ought to dress more warmly, Gerd," he added, stared at Lord Lynx, the scars around his ear holes flushed red with anger where Master Aemon had cut the ears away. "We will see how warm you can dress when winter comes." He pulled up his hood and hunched over the garden, silent and sullen. "If Garrett said it was a cold," Will began. "Have you drawn any watches this past week, Will?" "Yes, my lord." There never was a week when he didn't draw frozen body watches. What was the man driving at? And how did you find the wall? "Weeping," Will said, frowning. He saw it clear enough now that the Lordlings had pointed it out. They couldn't have froze, not if the walls was weeping. It wasn't cold enough. The Royce nodded. "Right, lad. We had a few light frosts this past week. Quick flurry of snow now and then, but surely no cold fierce enough to kill 8 grown men. The men clad in a fur and leather, let me remind you, with the shelter near at hand, means making of a fire." The knight's smile was cocksure. "Will lead us there. I would see these dead men for myself." And then there was nothing to be done it for. The order had been given. Honor bound them to obey. Will went in front, his shaggy little Karen, picking the way carefully through the undergrowth. A light snow had fallen the night before, and there were stones and roots and hidden sinks lying just under its crust, waiting for the careless and unwary. Sir Weimar Royce came next, his great black destrier snorting impatiently. The war horse was wrong mount for ranging, but try and tell that to the lordlings. Gerd brought up the rear. The man at arms muttered to himself as he rode. Twilight deepened. The cloudless sky turned a deep purple, a color of old bruise, then faded to black. The stars began to come out. A half moon rose. The wheel was grateful for the light. We can make a better place than this, surely, the Royce said when the moon was full reason. Not with this horse, we said. Fear had made him insolent. Perhaps my lord would take care to take the lead. Sir Weimar Royce didn't deign to reply. Somewhere off the wood, a wolf howled. Will pulled his carronade beneath an ancient gnarled ironwood and dismounted. Why are you stopping? Sir Weimar asked. Best to go the rest of the way on foot, my lord. It's just over the reach. The Royce paused a moment, staring off into the distance, his face reflective. A cold wind whispered through the trees. His great stable cloak stirred behind his something half alive. There is something wrong here, Gary muttered. The young knight gave him this disdainful smile. Is there? Can't you feel it? The Garrett asked. Listen to darkness. Will could feel it. 4 years in a night watch, and he had never been so afraid. What was it? Wind, the trees rustling, a wolf. Which sound is it that unmans you so carried? When the carriage did not answer, the Royce said gracefully from his saddle. He tied the destrier securely to the low-hanging limb, well away from the other horses, and drew his long sword from his sheath. Jewels glistered in the hilt, and moonlight ran down the shining steel. It was splendid weapon, castle forge, new made from the look of it. Will doubted it ever been swung in anger. The tree pressed close here. Will warn. That sword will tangle you up, my lord. Better knife. If I instructions, I will ask you, the young lord said. Carriage stay there. Guard the horses. Carriage dismounted. We need a fire. I will see to it. How big a fool are you, old man? If there are enemies in the wood, the fire is the last thing we want. There is some enemies a fire will keep away. Bears, werewolves, and other things. The surveyor's font became hard like no fire. The carried hood shadowed his face. Will could see the hard glister in his eyes as he stared at the night. For a moment he was afraid the older man would go for his word. It was a short, ugly thing, its grips discolored by the sweat, its edge nicked from hard use, and Will would not have given an iron buff for a lordling's life if Gerd pulled it from its scabbard. Finally Gerd looked down. No fire, he muttered, low under his breath. Royce took it for acquaintances and turned away. Lead on, he said to Will. Will shredded their way through thicket and then started up the slope to the low ridge where he had found his vantage point under the sentinel tree. Under the thin crust of snow, the ground was damp and muddy, slick footing, with the rocks and hidden roots to trip you up. Will made no sound as he climbed. Behind him he heard the soft metallic slither of the lordling's ringmail, rustle of leaves, and muttered curses as reaching branches grabbed at his long sword and tugged on his splendid sable cloth. The great sentinel was right there at the top of the ridge, where the will had known it would be, its lowest branches a bare foot off the ground. Will slid in underneath, flat on his belly, in a slough and the mud, looked down at an empty clearing below. His heart stopped in the chest. For a moment he dared not to breathe. The moonlight shone down on the clearing, the ashes of fire pit, the snow-covered lean-to, the great rock, the little half-frozen stream. Everything was just as it had been a few hours ago. They were gone. All bodies were gone. Gods! He heard behind him. The sword slashed at a branch as Sir Raymond Royce gained at the reach. He stood there beside the sentinel, long sword in hand, his cloak billowing behind him as the wind came, outlined nobly against the stars, all to see. Get down, Will whispered urgently. Something's wrong. Royce did not move. He looked down at the empty clearings and laughed. Your dead man seems to have moved up, my champ. Will's voice abandoned him. He groped for the words that didn't come. It was not possible. His eyes swept back and forth over the abandoned composite campsite, stopped on the X, the huge double-bladed battle axe still lying where he had seen it last, untouched, a valuable weapon. On your feet, Bill, Sir Wayman commanded. There is no one here. I won't have you hiding under the bush. Reluctantly, Will obeyed. The said Wayman looked at him over the open disapproval. I'm not going back to the castle, Black. A failure on my first ranging. We will see and find these men. He glanced around. Up the tree. Be quick about it. Look for a fire. Will turned away, wordless. There was no use to argue. The wind was moving. It cut right through him. He went to the tree, vaulting the grey-green sentinel, and began to climb. Soon his hands were sticky with the sap, and he lost among the needles. Fear filled his gut like a mill he could not digest. He whispered a prayer to the nameless gods of wood and slipped his tree free of stealth. He put it between his teeth to keep both hands free for climbing. The taste of cold iron in his mouth gave him comfort. Down below, the lordlings came out suddenly. Who goes there? The wheel heard uncertainty in the challenge. He stopped climbing. He listened and he watched. The woods gave answer, the rustle of leaves, the icy rush of stream, and the distant hoot of a snow owl. The others made no sound. Will saw the movement from the corner of his eye, the pale shapes gliding through the wood. He turned his head, glimpsed a white snow in the darkness, then it was gone. The branches stirred gently in the wind, scratching at one another with the wooden fingers. Will opened his mouth to call down a warning, and the word seemed to freeze in his throat. Perhaps he was wrong. Perhaps it had only been a bird or a reflection on the snow, some trick of a moonlight. What had he seen, after all? Will, where are you? Sir Wayman called up. Can you see anything? He was turning in a slow circle. Suddenly, bury his sword in hand, he must have felt them, and so you will have felt him. There was nothing to see. Answer me. Why it is so cold? It was cold, shivering. Will clung more tightly to his speech. His face pressed hard against the trunk of Sentinel. He could feel the sweet, sticky sap on his cheek. The shadow emerged from the dark of a wood. It stood in front of a Royce, tall. It was gaunt and hard as old bones, with the flesh pale as a milk. Its armor seems to change color as it moved. Here it was, white as a new fallen snow, there black as shadow everywhere, dappled with the grey green of trees. The pattern ran like a moonlight on the water with every step it took. We heard the breath go out of Sir Weimar Royce in a long hiss. Come no further. The lordlings warned. His voice cracked like boys. He threw the long sable cloak back over his shoulders to free his arms for a battle. Took his sword in both hands. The wind had stopped. It was very good. The other slid forward on a silent feet. In its hand was a long sword like none that we had ever seen. No human metal had gone into forging for that blade. It was alive with the moonlight, translucent, and a shard of crystal, so thin that it seemed almost to vanish with the seam it on. There was a faint blue shimmer to the thing, the ghost light that played around its edges, and somehow we knew it was sharper than any razor. Sir Weimar made him bravely dance with me then. He lifted his sword high over his head, defiant. His hand trembled from the weight of it, and perhaps from the cold. Yet in the moment, Bill thought he was a boy no longer, but a man of a night's watch. The order hardened. Bill saw his eyes blue, deeper, bluer than any human eyes, a blue that burned like ice. They fixed on a long sword trembling on a heart, watched the moonlight running cold along the metal, for the heartbeat he dared to hope. The- They emerged silently from the shadows, twins to first, three of them, four, five. Sir Weimar may have felt the cold that came with them, but he saw them, never heard them. We'll have to call out. It's his duty, and it's death. He shivered and hugged the tree and kept the silence. The pale sword came shivering through the air. The Sir Weimar made it still. When the blades met, there was no ring of a metal or a metal, only the high, thin sound at the edge of the hearing, like animals screaming in a pen. Royce checked a second blow and third, and then fell back a step. Another flurry of blows, and he fell back again. Behind him, to the right, to the left, all around him, the watchers stood patient, faceless, silent, the shifting patterns of their delicate armor making them all but invisible in the wood. Yet they made no move to interfere. Again and again the swords met, until Bill wanted to cover his ears against the strange, unused keening of their clash. Sir Weimar was fainting from the effort now, his breath stealing in moonlight. His blade was white with the frost, and the other danced with the pale green light. Then the Royce parry came a bit too late. The pale sword bit through the ringhole beneath his arm. The young lord cried out in a pain. The blood welled between the rings. He stained in the cold, and droplets since red as fire where they touched the snow. Sir Weimar's fingers brushed his side. His moleskin glove came away soaked with red. The other said something in a language that Will did not know. His voice was like cracking of ice on a winter lake, and the words were mocking. The Sir Weimar Royce found his fury for Robert. He shouted, and he came up snarling and lifting the frosted-covered longsword with both hands, swinging it around the flat sidearm slash with his all weight behind it. The other's parry was almost late. When the blades touched, the shield shattered. The scream echoed through the forest night, and the longsword shivered into 100 brittle pieces. The shards scattering like the rain of needles. The Royce went to his knees, shrieking, and covered his eyes. The blood wailed between his fingers. The watchers moved forward together, As if some signal had given, the swords rose and fell, all in a deathly silence. It was a cold butchery. A pale blade sliced through the ringlet as if it were said. Bill closed his eyes. Far beneath him, he heard their voices and laughter sharp as icicles. When he found courage to look him again, a long time had passed, the rich pillow was empty. He stayed in a tree, the scarce daring to look, while moon crept slowly across the black sky. Finally, his muscles cramped him, and his fingers numbed the cold. He climbed down. The Roy's body lay face down in the snow, one arm outflung. The thick silver cloth had been slashed in dozen pieces. Laying dead like that you saw how young he was a boy. He found what was left of a sword a few feet away, the end splintered and twisted like a tree struck by lightning. Bill knelt and looked around warily and snatched it up. The broken sword would be of his proof. The Gerd would know what to make of it, and if not him, then surely the old dear Mormon or Master Aemon would carry it waiting with the horses back to hurry. Bill rose. The surveyman Roy stood over him. His fine clothes were tattered, his face ruined. A shard from his sword transfixed it. The blind, white pupil of his left eye. The right eye was open. The pupil unblinked. The broken sword fell from nerveless fingers. Bill closed his eyes to pray. Long elegant hands brushed his cheek, then tightened around his throat. Then he glowed in the finest moleskin and sticky with the blood. That touch was ice cold. And the morning went down clear and cold, with the crispness that hinted at the end of the summer. They set forth at daybreak to see a man beheaded, painting on the wall. The brand rode along them, nervous with excitement. This was the first time he had been deemed old enough to go with his lord father and brothers to see the night justice done. It was the ninth year of the summer and seventh of a man's life. The man had taken outside a small wood park in the hills. Rob thought he was wildly. His sword sworn on his radar, the thing beyond the wall. It made Bron's skin prickle to think of it. He remembered the hurt tales old man told him. The Vikings were cruel men, she said. The slavers, slayers, and thieves. They consorted with the giants, cows, stole girl children in the dead of the night, and drank the blood from the polished horns. And their women lay with the others in the long night to sire terrible half-human children. But the men they found bound hand and put at the hard-fast wall awaiting the king's justice was old, scrawny, and not much taller than Rob. He was lost both ears and fingers to the frostbite, and he dressed all in black, the same as the brother of the night's watch, except that his furs were hair and greasy. The breath of a man and horse mingled, steaming in the cold morning air as his lord father and a man cut down from the wall and dragged before them. Rob and John sat tall and still on their horses, with the brand between them on his pony, trying to seem older than seven, trying to pretend that he had seen all this before. A faint wind blew through the hold-fast gate. Over their heads flapped the banner of the Stars of Winterfell, a grey badwood racing across the ice like gate. The band's father sat stalling on his horse, the long brown hair steering in the wind. His close glittering beard was short with the white and making him look older than his 35 years. He had pink eyes to his grey eyes these days. He seems not at all the man who would sit before the fire in the evenings and talk softly of the age of heroes and children of the forest. He had taken off the father's face, the man thought, and donned the face of a Lord Stark in the face. There were questions asked, answers given, there in the chill of a morning, and afterward Brad could not recall much of what had been said. Finally, his Lord Father gave the command. Two of his groundsmen dragged the right man to the iron stump in the center of the square. They forced his head down onto the hard black wood. Lord Aidan's staff dismounted, and his sword hewn Greyjoy brought forth the sword. Ice. The sword was on. It was big, wide, across as a man's hand, and taller than the rock. The blade was Valyrian steel, spell-forged, dark as the smoke. Nothing held an edge like a blade steel. His father peeled off his gloves and handed them to the Joy Castle, the captain of his household guard. He took hold of the ice with the both hands and said, "In the name of Robert, House Baratheon, first of his name, King of Andals, Numenor, and first mate, the Lord of Seven Kingdoms and Protector of realms, by the word of Eldar of House Stark, the Lord of Winterfell, and word of North, I will sentence to die." He lifted his great sword high above his head. The Brand's master, Brother Jon Snow, moved closer. "Keep the pony well in hand," he whispered, "and don't look away. Father will know if you look." The Brand kept his pony well in hand, did not look away. His father took off the man's hand with a single sheer stroke. The blood sprayed out across the snow as red as summer wine. One of the horses reared and had to be restrained to keep from bolting. The Brand could not take his eyes off the blood. He snored around the stump, drank it eagerly, readily as he watched. The head bounced off thick root and rolled. It came up near the Killjoy's pit. Theon was a lean, dark youth of 19 who found everything amusing. He laughed, but his foot on the head and kicked it away. "Yes," shot muttered, "I'll slow enough to Greyjoy tonight." He put his hand on the Brand's shoulder, and Brand looked over at his master's brother. He did it. Young brother. John was 14, and old hand at justice. He seemed older on the long ride back to Whitaker. Though the wind had died by then, the sun was higher in the sky. Bran rode with his brothers, well ahead of a main party, and his own struggling hard to keep up with their horses. The deserters died daily, but Hoff said he was a big and proud, growing every day with his mother's colorings and fair skin, red brown hair, blue eyes of Tully's Riverman. He had a courage. No, Jon Snow said quietly. It was not a courage. This one did not fear. You could see in her eyes. You could see in his eyes. Stark. John's eyes were grey, so dark they seemed almost black, but there was a living that you can see. He was an age of rock, but they did not look alike. John was a stranger, but the rock was a muscular, dark, where the rock was a pale, graceful, thick, where his half brother was strong and fast. Rob was not impressed. The others take his eyes, his soul. He died well.